Okay, great. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the coziest and most informative panel that you'll be at today. We appreciate you all coming so much. My name is Jenny Backus. I am a recovering tech policy staffer. I worked at Google for a long time. I worked in the government at HHS for President Obama. I worked for Senator Harry Reid in the U.S. Senate. I've kind of done everything. I am laughing because I am 55 years old and asked to moderate the innovation panel, so I would like to personally thank Stephen for that. And I would also like to thank Marissa, if you see her in the back. She is our FOSI staffer who put this together. I just want to salute her and all of the staff for putting everything together today. So we're going to have a really fun morning here. I have a fabulous panel here, and we're going to have a little bit of a conversation and then bring you guys in at the end for questions as we go along. And I have to say, just doing the pre-call with these guys, I am just blown away by what is happening out there in the world of tech. I think innovation is one of the strongest policy arguments that you can ever have when you're talking about tech policy, because if you overregulate or try to quash some of this innovation, there's so many things that aren't going to happen that could really have a massive impact on the world. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Stephen. I was just praising you earlier that you asked the 55-year-old to moderate the innovation panel. So you've got to stick together. So we're going to open up. I'm going to have everyone on the panel quickly tell you who they are. I know you can read, but to give you a little bit more context of where they work and where you're from, but also in the spirit of innovation, I want you all to talk about one piece of technology that's around today that you wish was around when you were growing up. And I'll start. And I will say AirPods, because I grew up in the era of Walkman. I don't know if any of you ever listened to those speakers with those, like, it was like metal drilling into your ears. So I'm grateful for AirPods, and I'm turning it over to Viraj.
Great. Hey, everyone. I'm Viraj Doshi. I work on the platform safety team at Snapchat. I'm from San Francisco. I recently joined Snapchat, but I've been working in tech and safety for quite a few years. I would say one piece of technology I wish was around would be, I'm very directionally challenged, so Google Maps, Apple Maps would have been a lifesaver as opposed to printing out pages and pages of MapQuest and hoping you made the right turn. So I wish that was around.
I'm Andrew Hasbun. I run the safety communications team at Uber, which is basically our crisis safety PR team. I've been there since 2016, and I'd say the one piece of technology that I wish I had when I was young, and I know I'm biased here, but it would probably be Uber.
Oh, yeah.
Because the amount of times that I needed a ride and couldn't get one, I had to beg a friend or beg a parent.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm Anup Kaneri. I'm working with 5 years at SmithMicro. So SmithMicro, we build a platform for providing digital parenting location solutions. And the way we operate is through the communication service provider, who and then gives the platform to the end users. That's how we work.
All right, where are you from?
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is our headquarters. And one piece of technology that I wish that was there, I would say, AirPods as well. Like music is important. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tom Lee. I'm the CISO at Mattel, where data privacy and security is very close to my heart and our team. I'm from El Segundo, California, where Mattel headquarters is, where it's a high of 71 today, and the low is higher than the high here. And, one piece of technology I wish I had way back then would have been vehicle driver assist. And to this day, my car actually doesn't have rear cameras. I actually have to check my own blind spots. And whenever I get a rental car, or when I drive my kids' fancy BMW, it does all that, and it tells them, and sometimes it auto-corrects for him if he leans too far. I drive that thing, I think it's going to kill me.
Hi everyone, my name's Henry Platten. I'm from GoBubble. I'm the chief innovator. As the accent gives away, I'm from London. Bit of technology that I wish had been around. I play a lot of soccer, and the Aura Ring I'm addicted to. So as a kid, I really wish it had been around. I then think I may have been a professional footballer. But, yeah.
It would have made all of the professionals even more professional.
Exactly.
You know,
I want to talk to you about the dribbling soccer ball thing for my godson, but we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, so today we're going to talk about innovation and online safety. And as we learned this morning, from AI to actually new innovations in education, consumer education, this year, we're seeing a huge surge of new products and new services across the net, and here, actually, if you walk through on the panels. We heard some more this morning about some really fascinating new research about generative AI, and as we all know, there's a lot of noise out there in the media and the policy world about it. Lots of misconceptions, lots of unknowns, and some beacons of hope. So how can today we're going to try to talk about how AI can help improve and shape online safety for kids and families. And we were going to ask these guys how you guys see AI technology impacting your products and services, and how can we get AI to use it to get ahead of bad generated user content, which is a big worry. But, I mean, I just wanted to talk a little bit, just quickly to segue into a question to Tom. So I was just saying this morning, I got an email poem from a really good friend of mine that was written with AI for Diwali. Last night I tried to make meatballs with my friend, Barefoot Contessa, spicy turkey meatballs, highly recommend, but I didn't have enough meat. And so she used AI, not me, she used AI to change the recipe so that we could figure out how to make the meatball recipe, and it took like 30 seconds. So I am really, even as sort of an older person who loves tech but is a little nervous, just every single day, like I see AI touching me in so many different ways. Okay, but it's actually touched us like from the basic board game, and I want to turn it over to Tom because, as you guys may not know, Mattel just released AI Pictionary, which I'm very intrigued about how it works. And it seems like most of the press these days is scary and sort of concerning about AI, but here you are, proactively marketing it to families. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you about the game, but first of all, I want to tell you about how it came to our team. So our security team, we do security and data privacy reviews, architecture reviews for every product that we release for the very reasons that we're here today. And when the idea of Pictionary versus AI came to us, knowing everything we do about AI, we thought, oh man, I'm going to need 3 times the budget. It's going to take forever to launch the product. Turns out it was the shortest review we've ever done for any product, and I'll tell you why. Our privacy counsel, a very wise thing he says, if you don't store any data, they can't steal any data. And I thought, okay. And so one of our design principles was don't store data. And so it's great because then we know it's safe from a data privacy perspective. So Pictionary versus AI. You all know what Pictionary is, where you draw a picture and people try to guess it. Well, it completely changes how you play a Pictionary game. So now it's a board game where you're trying to get, you and all the other players are trying to get from the start to the finish line. How you advance is, when it's your turn, you draw a picture based on the prompt, and then the AI will guess what it is. So it could be, say, a cat, and you draw a picture of a cat. But here's the tricky part. The AI could get it wrong. So before you present the picture to the AI, you have to decide, is the AI going to be correct or not? And all the other players around the room can see your really bad drawing of the cat, and they can also guess whether you're wrong or correct. And there's other fun innovations. There's a feature that can be unlocked where everyone can draw one line, like one straight line on your drawing, and we'll see if the AI still detects it. There's a mode where everyone has to draw their picture without looking at their paper. Which is really interesting because all of a sudden the best artist in the room might be the worst person with motor skills to draw a picture without looking at it. But what's really interesting, and I think this hasn't even been covered yet, is because the AI learns and predicts, and in this case it's not learning off of our data, but in general as AI evolves, it can discern images across categories that we may traditionally not think about when we talk about Pictionary and similar games. For example, this is just a hypothetical, not related to the product roadmap or anything, but I was thinking, what if you had different classes of individuals who have difficulty drawing, but you could train an AI engine to understand how different phases of cerebral palsy might impact your ability to draw certain images. And so now all of a sudden, not only can you be inclusive and include these groups who wouldn't have played Pictionary before, but you can even have parity. So you can have the best artists in the world play against someone who can't draw at all or maybe has never drawn in their life, and the AI makes that a level playing field. So it's a completely different way to think about just games in general. And one thought I'll leave with you. You can probably picture in your mind certain objects that to humans sounds extremely simple to classify, but gives the AI engine just fits. Picture a traditional hat, and now picture a cake. If you just look at the contours of a cake and a hat, humans, we can tell what's a cake or what's a hat. You can trick the AI that way. One tip.
All right. I'm on it. So here's Mattel. You brought AI into how you do things. But Henry, you are building everything from scratch with AI. So talk to us a little bit about well, before I do that, Henry is recognized around the world. He doesn't like me to overdo this, but for Tech for Good, he's a former law enforcement police sergeant. So he understands the role that developers and regulators play, but he's building systems from scratch. So start us off and tell us about what you guys have been doing at GoBubble and Link.
Thanks. So at GoBubble, we've been building AI now for, our journey's been 12 years. So it's great to see that the headlines and the news agencies have picked up AI over the last year. That's great. But yeah, it's really been an interesting journey. We started off focusing very much on families and kids, and we've benefited kids in more than 70 different countries in terms of giving them safe opportunities to learn and to communicate. But the AI, in essence, understands sentiment. So wherever there is emotion, our AI can understand it. Text, written, video, audio, multiple languages. I think one of the interesting things being an AI developer is when we look at the responsibilities and the risks on developers. So this is where a lot of regulators now are starting to turn the torchlight, which is exactly right. They should be looking at this because the inherent risk with AI is around bias. That's the single biggest risk with AI. And that comes down to what is your approach to build. So for us, we have a 3-tiered approach. You've got to build the right product for the right use in the right way. If you get any of that wrong, it just doesn't work. So looking at, for example, bias, one of the biggest risks is where does your training data come from? So just like Tom and Mattel, we don't store data because that's one of the big risks that comes through. But if you have the right training models that come through, the right practices, the beauty now is the innovation exists to make that scalable and work. And that's what we're seeing with billions of messages every month that are being checked and going through. The really proud thing, being a dad, so I've got 2 kids, 7 and 11, not the store, the ages. I always know your audience. So it's that wouldn't work over the pond. So, but yeah, it's very much, the future for them, I think, is incredibly exciting when it comes to AI. And there is so much opportunity that exists that needs to be celebrated and embraced as long as the developers are following through in the right way and are building the tools in the right approach.
Well, I want to build on that. So you're talking about your right approach, your right product, and your right use. And a lot of AI can be technical. There's some people on here that can clearly write the code and do the new algorithm, but it's also about policy changes and kind of changing the way that you approach different audiences. And this is where I want Andrew to come in, because Uber has been doing a really innovative new program that is addressing a policy issue that you guys have been facing about teens, including mine, and I just got in trouble for this, but teens using your app to use Uber, and they've kind of redefined the idea of consent. So tell us a little bit about that.
So we faced a pretty tough situation for many years, which is parents like you letting their teenage child use an Uber and just go wherever they want and do whatever, and it was kind of a must-have for you, right? It was
Yeah.
It was meeting a need because you're a working parent.
Exactly.
There's millions of them all over the country, and so we were running into a situation where a driver would show up and there'd be a teenager there, and the driver would be stuck having to make a decision, be like, I don't want to take a kid, I don't want to be responsible for someone's child, or have to cancel the trip and leave a teen stranded on a street corner when they don't know the type of situation they could. They could have been escaping a bad situation. They maybe just needed a ride to get to sports practice. It's a tough situation for everybody. The parents got to figure it out. The kid's potentially stranded, and the driver's also stuck. Do I take the fare? Do I not? Do I violate Uber's policy?
Right.
So we built a new feature called Teen Accounts. And through Teen Accounts, a parent can invite their teen to join their family profile. And through that, the teen then has an Uber account that's a specific Uber account designed for teens. They can't do anything but get rides and order basic food. And every time they request a ride, mom gets a notification saying your son or daughter has requested a ride, and this is where they're going. And mom and dad can follow the trip on their phone and see the driver. They can call the driver. They can, see exactly when the kid gets dropped off. They get alerts in their phone, but for every step of the way. And then on top of that, the driver's notified in advance that they're picking up a teen. And the driver has the choice whether to accept the trip, not accept the trip, or just opt out altogether of getting teens. And so when we talk about consent is everyone's on the same page. The driver knows they're picking up a teen, the teen knows that they're ordering a trip, and their parent knows, and they've signed up, and the parent is on board too with their teen using their credit card and getting a trip, and everyone knowing about this. Now, if your teen has their own account already, violating our policy, once mom invites the teen to join, we take that existing account and we convert it into a teen account. So there's really no way around it. Once you're in, you're in.
Yep.
And then when you turn 18, you can get an adult account. We graduate you into an adult account. So when we talk about AI, our use of AI is not front-facing. It's not something that you see when you're ordering a ride. It's all back-end stuff. Things like chats and contact between the driver and the parent, or the parent and the teen, things along those lines. It's all back-end, things that you don't see and that we don't really talk about.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you do that as we transition to talk to Viraj here, because it's amazing how many people don't read the fine print on things, AKA me not reading the fine print on the Uber teen account, or not on the Uber teen, but just on my teen can't do it. But it's also amazing how many people don't really know how your technology works. I was going to show my smartphone, but I put it away. But I have no idea how to use all the functions on my smartphone. And I worked in tech, and I'm interested in it, and I love to learn new things. You can come up with the most innovative, game-changing product in the whole world, but if no one knows how to use it, or if you haven't educated anybody on it, how good is it? So you have this new teen center. Viraj, you guys have the new family center. How important is education and marketing to the success of something? And how do you take care of that last mile challenge so that you can make sure the right people are using your tool and not the wrong people?
Yeah, totally. So happy to talk about a little bit more about our family center. So we launched our family center last year, and essentially what the family center is, it's designed to spark conversations between parents and their teens who are on Snapchat. And so what it allows parents to do when they are able to connect with their teen via the family center is a couple different tools. One, you're able to set content controls, so you can determine what sort of content your teen is and isn't able to see. You're able to see who they're friends with, because Snapchat, unlike other social media companies, it's really geared towards connecting with real friends and real family members that you have in real life, as opposed to gaining followers or gaining likes. So parents can see who their teens are actually friends with. Parents can then send reports into Snapchat if they suspect any abuse or misuse. And then most interestingly, they can see who their teens have been messaging. But the nuance there is that they can't actually see the messages themselves, because we wanted to make sure we protect the privacy of the teens themselves. And that was really an important part of this, because in order for teens to buy into this and to sign up for the family center with their parent, they have to be comfortable. And we all know that they're going to be suspicious about doing anything like that with their parents. So we really emphasize that point, that you can't necessarily see the messages themselves, but teens can see that they have a mirrored view of what their parents can see, so they can see exactly what their parents can see. Again, just trying to reemphasize that trust and build that trust between parents and teens. We did some research that really informed our family center, and we did this. This is our second year doing it. But when we launched a family center, what we learned is that teens who had parents who checked in with them on their digital health, generally speaking, had better outcomes when it comes to digital well-being. And what we found also is that there's a much more trusting relationship between parents and teens if parents make that effort to have that initial conversation, which I know can be tough because there's so many different technologies, so many different companies and platforms. But I think just taking that small effort, if possible, of taking advantage of some of those tools, Jenny, that you were kind of mentioning, that a lot of platforms have. Snapchat has Family Center. Being able to learn and be a little bit more fluent in kind of what teens are actually using and how they're using it can build a lot of trust and can have a lot of long-term dividends. Jenny, kind of to your question, though, what we know is that it's important that families and parents know that these tools exist. So it's a big priority for us to get this in front of as many parents as possible. So if you are parents right now, if you guys have a teen that's on Snapchat, I highly encourage you guys to go to parents.snapchat.com and check it out. The other thing that we're trying to do, Jenny, and this is kind of the flip side of the parent equation, is for our teen users themselves, we're trying to target them directly where they are, which is on Snapchat, right? And so as opposed to our family center, which is very geared towards parents and a little bit more kind of like basic 101s on how to use this, what this means, how you can be more involved in your teen's life, on the app itself, we have content that's geared towards teenagers, and it reaches topics such as like mental health, abuse, bullying, depression, things that we know that some kids are going through on our app, and we want to make sure that they get certain resources. And so it's bite-sized content, which I love. It's exactly the type of content that they're already viewing on Snapchat. And what I think is most important is that it features the voices of teens themselves. So it's not, me, it's not another adult, it's a teen talking about how they approached, a bullying situation that they faced online and talking about how they kind of got through that. So I think one thing that we're trying to do is make sure that we're pushing that in-app as well. For our teen users, and then on the other side, making sure that parents know about the resources that exist for them as well.
Sounds like you guys have internalized the poll from this morning that said that parents want classes and teens want to be taught about AI on social media. So that's great. Now, okay, so we're in the olden days of the internet. I'm going to Anup here. There was a clear line between kids' products and adults' products, and you're just talking about like how you're taking out what is more of a teen product, but you have an adult and a kid's perspective on it. But these days, it doesn't seem like our whole life seems like it's being lived online. Many of us get our food, our medical advice, our entertainment, our banking online. So everybody's kind of waking up to this reality of protecting kids online, because I do definitely have friends whose kids have gone onto Amazon and ordered $2,000 worth of Weeble Wobble, whatever. We are definitely living a digital family lifestyle, and you guys work directly in the B2B space. So it's really important to have B2C, business to consumer, but it's also B2B. You have to teach other businesses how to make sure you're, doing this the right way. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do and like how it's sort of designed to address our digital life.
Sure. So our products are B2B, but the end user are the parents using it.
Yep.
So it is B2B2C, if you will.
Excellent.
Just to clarify. So the platform we are building, it primarily does location and digital parenting on it. So, basic things like screen time limits, how much time a kid should spend, on a news channel. We also have categories by groups and things like that. So the parent doesn't have to go buy individual app or a news site. They can if they want to, but they can also set it by a group, like offline games, online games, social media. How much time they should be spending on it can be controlled. So we started with that. But then what we realized is, and this is where the AI part becomes a lot more important, kids are becoming more and more online, and it's not just consuming content like through news media or videos, they're also contributing content on social media. And that content is going to live out there for a long time. Like you may tweet about something, and this person, may run for an office 20 years down the line, may come and haunt it. So what we are doing is trying to identify content before it becomes too viral, if you will, like things like cyberbullying, intolerance. If a kid is posting something or is getting cyberbullied, self-harm is another area that we are looking into as well, or invoking violence. So, and we are doing this across multiple languages, like profanity in multiple languages. So how can you detect that? You mentioned Diwali, the people may be talking in their local language, not necessarily just in English. So we're translating that and saying, hey, you may not want to use this word here, and notify the parent, right? We all have made mistakes, right, growing up, and those mistakes online can live forever. So encourage parents to have that conversation with the kids and saying, hey, you don't want to do that. And these moments we feel like are moments of education and learning for the family. So that's how we focus on digital family lifestyle. The other part that I want to add is, we think that location is also important for the family member. Like Andrew mentioned, knowing where the kid is also important. And then the amount of content or the type of content you're accessing at a location should also vary. Like if you're at a home versus school or a library, so we try to combine both of those components as well, which puts us in a unique position to provide those kind of services.
I wish I had some of this a couple of years ago. That's awesome. I think what I want to do now is, you guys are actually perfectly tracking Stephen's whole larger vision for this with this poll, because we talked a little bit about what you guys are building for parents and families to use. But the other thing that came up in that poll was that it was very kind of interesting to me, because I've seen a lot of technology polling in the policy space over the years, and it's not always the government that people choose, but there were after parents, people were saying they want to have educators and the government kind of have an impact with AI, because I think it's mostly because it's probably so unknown. But how has regulation, and you don't have to only talk about AI, and this is a question for all of you, and just jump in. How has sort of regulation on the US or even on the international level complicated your product development process? And has it simplified or also helped you assist in your product? Tom, you talked about that a little bit when you guys made the decision not to store the data, but tell me a little bit about how regulation, and especially regulation around AI, is impacting your products. And I'm looking at you, Henry, so you're going to go first. And by the way, I do have to compliment, we have the best jackets. Look at the jackets here on this panel.
Thanks, Jenny. For us, it's been reassuring. And the reason why I say that is that we always had a vision for how we wanted to build our own AI. And what's coming out from a lot of the debates is actually the approach that we've taken is the right approach. Now, we kind of felt that already, but it's always nice when regulators come along and they say, actually, best practice should look like this, this, this. And it's like, oh, excellent, tick, 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 great. At the same time, what we're seeing, particularly in the UK, is the openness of organizations like Ofcom to actually work directly with developers and with platforms and with the operators of AI to actually understand how are we doing things, and then looking at that information sharing. Because I think the interesting thing with AI and the whole nature of AI is collaboration. So as opposed to Web 2.0, which was you build things in silo, you then release them out, it's then competitive advantage, AI is completely different. To have true AI, you need to collaborate across multiple partners, multiple regions. We work in 6 different continents. And that's important because that, again, addresses that bias. So for us, it's a good thing. I think as well, there are some, I talked about education in the last question. I think there is the opportunity and the openness from regulators at the moment to be educated by industry as well. And again, it's seeing that nice symbiotic relationship. That's really what feels different at the moment. So for us, personally, it's been a great thing.
I think the variation in regulations is very challenging for technology teams and amazing for lawyers. A lot of times, as a technologist, when you're building a solution, you're looking at all the common denominators across all the policies. You're basically building a superset of all the regulations for that particular area, because otherwise you're going to have to build separate regulations for different regions. And that generally worked for most of like 80s and 90s, and then we got this GDPR thing and this California's crazy thing. So now what you're seeing a lot of companies doing is running different sets of policies for different regions, but I think there is still this desire to, whether industry does it or the regulators all get together and sing kumbaya and come up with a single policy set. But I think there is still this desire to come up with a set of requirements that covers every regulation out there, so in that way you're not doing 8 different things for 8 different regions.
Yep.
Yeah, for us, for most part, the regulation has been a good thing. Things like age-appropriate design, that's already, I think, Utah has passed it and some other states too. Of course, it's passed in Europe. We have been doing that already. So I really like the fact, we already have this, right?
Yeah.
So I like the fact that it's increasing visibility on things. Like there are websites or apps that you go, hey, poker.com, right? You need to be 18 and above. Of course, the kid clicks yes to it, right? But that's not good enough, right? And the increased visibility from regulators is like, yes, this is not good enough. You should be preventing the kid from going to those websites in the first place. We really like that. The challenge part is in fragmentation as well. So the policies, if it is a national level, it's much easier, but to vary it by state, and then to make sure that we comply with each and every state's slight variations, that makes it a little bit difficult to implement a broader subset of a policy. Because for most part, we want to be more restrictive, but also make sure that we also understand each state's, or even in Europe, it's more of each country's regulations. So I would really like a broader oversight on it rather than a fragmented approach.
Our regulatory landscape is very challenging because we operate in every city on Earth, basically. So you could have the EU legislation, you could have federal legislation, you could have everything down to the city council of a small town in the suburbs of DC coming up with some type of regulation. And in my experience, what I've seen is that regulation is usually the result of a lack of action and a lack of like self-policing. And so for us, we don't want to be in a situation where we're regulated into doing something that we're not capable of doing or figuring out. And so with our teen product, we built this not to avoid regulation. We built it to solve a problem. But if you keep having a problem come up over and over and over and over again, then eventually it's going to lead somewhere.
Right.
And at least now you have a solution. And so I think that was kind of our lesson over the years, is that it's better to come up with a solution than to let a regulator come up with something that maybe is like faulted tech in a point in time that won't apply to the future. It's better for the company to do something than just be caught, doing nothing.
I tried to create a teen account for my 17-year-old in California. Didn't work. I told him, just lie.
It doesn't work in California yet, that's why. 49 states, not California just yet.
Yeah, I would just say, so for Snapchat, earlier this year, we launched our My AI chatbot. And so since then, we've seen 200 million people use it, sending 20 billion messages. So it's an incredible amount of content and volume there. The good news is that what we found is that 99% of the content that's being generated by that chatbot falls within our community guidelines, a little bit above 99%. But it's still a massive volume, so there's still a lot of work still to be done. I think, Henry, kind of what you were saying around collaboration, like this moment right now, I do feel as though, just like being at this conference, like online safety is having a real moment. There's a lot of momentum, and so I think being able to kind of like capture the good intentions across government, across civil society, across companies, to be super thoughtful about regulation, because I think, and Andrew, kind of what you were saying is, for us, for example, we're different than other social media companies, kind of what I was saying before. So we have different products, different features, different tools. We're kind of across different industries right here. So it can't just be a one-size-fit-all for everything, for every type of company, for every type of AI, because there's different features, there's different tools, there's different challenges that every company is facing as it comes to AI, or even more broadly speaking, safety. So I think it's going to be a collaboration piece. Just recently, we signed a pledge with 30 companies and organizations and government entities to fight child sexual exploitation and abuse imagery. We know that that's potentially going to be a problem. And so how can we collaborate with other players in the industry, with governments, to be smart about this and to get ahead of the issue, using what we've learned in this space over the past 10 years in non-AI spaces. So I think it's just going to be a mix of both, of working, internally, Andrew, what you were saying, like proactively building out the tools based on what the data that we're seeing and making sure our community is safe, but then making sure that we're creating space to collaborate with governments and civil society as much as possible to leverage the learnings that we've all learned over the past few years. So that's what I would say.
That's awesome. So I'm getting the sign that we want to go to questions, but I do want to just go with a lightning round question back around to you guys quickly, because this is a panel about innovation and the future. So we're talking about AI now, but when we come back and do this panel in 5 years, what will we be talking about in terms of innovation and online safety? Like, what is the new frontier in online safety? Stuff that's just starting now that everybody in this room needs to keep their ears open on. So I'm going to start with Viraj.
Sure. I think for us, what we're really excited about is augmented reality, so AR. Slightly different than VR in that it's not meant to transport you to a different world. It's supposed to, keep you in this world, but enhance and augment it with your connections in real life. So, we're really excited about that kind of space. We're seeing amazing growth in our developer community. We just had a developer conference, and it's around 300,000 developers, and we think that's going to continue to grow. And so we think there's going to be a lot of growth there, both AI and AR, and kind of the confluence of those two. That being said, with every new innovation, there's going to be safety problems and safety challenges that we can't even anticipate right now. So I think that is going to be something in a few years from now, we're going to be trying to grapple with the issues that came up as a result of more emphasis on both VR but also AR issues.
Self-driving cars.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have them in DC yet, but if you ever go out to Arizona or even San Francisco or some parts of Texas, Vegas, you'll see them in many, many places, and that will be the future. And it'll be very exciting and fun.
If you go to Austin, it's sport now to try to corral all the self-driving cars, because there's certain safety features built in. So if you run in front of them, they'll stop. So you have groups of college-age kids running around trying to redirect the cars, and if you get enough of them in a four-way intersection, they can't figure out how to get past, and they just all stop. It's happened a few times.
It's unsafe.
Kids have time.
It's unsafe.
But they didn't hit each other.
Yeah.
They stopped.
Yeah,
they didn't
they
hit each other. That's the key.
And they didn't hit anybody else.
In 5 years, I feel like there's going to be, we talk about user-generated content, so there's going to be a lot of AI-generated content as well, which will be used by teenagers and things like that. And I worry about if they create an image or use things like ChatGPT to do their homework, how is that going to affect? And the homework is there for some thinking to do, and if they're using tools or AI tools which does not have watermarks and which does not have
Right.
copying ability of that, it will start hurting the growth of the kids.
I know teachers that are very worried about that.
Yeah, I think the law of unintended consequences is, we don't even know what's going to happen yet, but I think that's the big theme in the next, say, 5 years. Right now, try to corral all the self-driving cars in Austin, we're really just in the first phase of AI. We're talking about features and benefits and emergent properties and all these great things. And we're only slowly beginning to talk about some of the potential misuse about, say, malicious offensive use of AI. And I think that whole AI versus human debate right now is just like the early stages. We're going to get to a point where the malicious actors will start using AI, so now we have to start using AI to defend against it, and so now you have AI versus AI, and I think that's when the doom loop has the potential to start. So I think that's the biggest danger, or maybe danger is too strong a word, but what we don't know now, and at the pace of how technology is accelerating, I think it's the unknown, potentially malicious or offensive use of AI is probably the one thing we need to pay attention to.
I think for me, the next 5 years is about hyper-personalization. So at GoBubble, we work in sentiment and understand emotion. We already do that in over 100 different emotions. So for us, we already have a roadmap where we're going to be taking that to thousands of different emotions. But I think in the next 5 years with AI, that form of hyper-personalization, either for content that's going to be viewed or generated or suggested, is where things will start to evolve, both for good and for bad. So that's where the guardrails need to be in place.
I can only name like 12 emotions.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
All right, well, I've taken up all this time, and let's go to questions. And just say who you are, your name and who you are, and then you can ask anybody or ask everybody.
Great. Thanks very much for the discussion. Hi, I'm Colin Curry. I'm from Ofcom. It's the UK's online safety regulator. So the panel has touched on the importance of bias mitigation. So from our perspective, we think that this is intrinsically linked to two other characteristics of automated technologies, which is accuracy. So how accurate the technology is in identifying the target content or behaviors, whatever it may be, and then effectiveness. How effective is it in achieving its purpose? So I wondered if, I'd love to hear more from the panelists about the architecture that they have in place in their respective companies to assess the accuracy, effectiveness, and potential bias of these technical solutions, and more importantly, where they draw the lines and set the thresholds to determine that something is accurate, effective, and unbiased enough to be able to ship it to customers or roll it out to users, just considering how many unintended or unexamined consequences there are with the deployment of these technologies.
If I could start with a short preamble and then pass to the panel. Yeah. I think if you look at how costly and expensive it is to do training right now for AI, what's going to happen is in the next few years, if not already, most companies who are adopting AI, they're going to use one of the large 4, 5, or 6 platforms. And so our ability to control the bias is going to be a little bit less what we can do. It's going to be more relying on big tech.
from our perspective, I can say it's all about annotated data, the data that's used to train it, and how good and how accurate is that data. The AI tools will mature in the same way. So if there is a bias in the annotation of the data set, there will be bias in the tools as well. To answer your question, we always take that into consideration, that there is going to be a bias, or there is going to be an evolution of understanding of that bias when we design our products. I don't know if that probably answers your question.
What's good enough?
It's good enough today to meet today's needs. And as these tools evolve, as AI matures, to your accuracy question, it will only get better. So one thing I know for sure is tomorrow it's going to be better than today, right? And it's going to be good enough to meet today's needs, and it will evolve as the AI evolves along with it. I think, it's all saying that it's the early evolution into this technology. So we'll get there more and more.
We routinely do fairness testing on almost all of our products that have like back-end machine learning and things like that. And we engage with third parties, usually like think tanks, to look at the data and make decisions with us.
So one of the things, first of all, being a UK company, we'd love to share the data with you that we have. But certainly when it comes
I
to
said you didn't hold data.
the models that we have. Yeah. So for the accuracy, one of the things that we have is that we operate around about 95 to 96% accuracy. But similar to Uber, we have third-party groups that we work with, which are all non-profit, that actually hold us to account. Mm-hmm. So similar to an ethics council, and they actually look at the accuracy that comes through in terms of what was the intended intention and what's the outcome that comes through. And only when it passes those standards do we then hand it over to clients.
Viraj, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, we also use, so our My AI is powered by by OpenAI. So we're now layering on OpenAI's content moderation and kind of their tooling onto our existing tech as well. That kind of predated our My AI. So I just to kind of echo a lot of what's already been said. I think it's going to continue to get better. We have systems in place, but as My AI gets better, our understanding of how people are using it, misusing it, if our systems are intelligent enough and if they're picking up the right content, will only continue to get better as well. So just would echo what people have already said here.
Anybody else with a question? All right, I'm going to go down the panel and see if there's any last things that you guys want to mention. We're at 5-minute warning. There you go. Any last messages you would like to leave with everybody? I'm going to start with Tom.
Well, if there's any regulators in the room, I think that this AI space is evolving very quickly. I think the number one guidance I would give as a technologist is whatever regulation or policy you're thinking of, make sure that the incentives align to the entity that have the ability to make that change.
Got it. How about you, Henry?
Yeah, I think there's an adage, there's a UK crime program that always used to end up by saying, don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Like, AI is no longer the Terminator, which everybody thought it was going to be. There are opportunities out there, but we have to tread carefully, and we have to do that hand in hand.
How about you, Viraj?
One thing I would want people to walk away with is, and this is self-interested, we're launching a teen council next year. We're going to be our team's going to be managing it, and so it's going to be an 18-month-long program for teen users. The first cohort will be around 20 teens, and what the purpose is to hear directly from that kind of group to understand what sort of tools and features and products and policies we should be thinking about it from their perspective. So if you know any teens that you think would be good to apply, please find me after, and would love to talk. And we're also going to have a parent track as well on top of the teen track. So if you're interested, if you're a parent to join there, please let me know.
Anup?
One message I want to say is, there are tools available, so reach out to your communication service provider. When we interview parents, the overwhelming theme that we hear is, oh, I didn't know such a thing existed, right? So getting the word out that you can configure certain things and have a way to manage online access for kids is the bigger challenge that I feel that's the message I want to say. Use our tools. They're there for a reason. There's a lot of thought put into it, and tell other parents too to use it as well.
Andrew?
I was going to say the exact same thing. We spend millions of dollars building all these tools and investing, and working with third parties, but if people don't use them, then it's all for naught. And the criticism and the regulatory environment just comes at you. And so my ask would be that if these companies are spending the time and the money to build it, that people actually use it. You're not, we were talking about this earlier, you're probably not going to see a Super Bowl ad from Snap or Uber talking about the family portal or teen accounts or things like that. But it's out there. We'd love to see it, don't get me wrong, but there are other priorities. And so it's really on all of us and parents and organizations that care about this stuff to get the word out.
Yeah.
And so our ask is that everybody actually use the features that we build.
And I will just echo that, having worked on both the regulatory side and on the company side, I do think, I'm a parent, and I look at products and I choose them around safety. And I do think we need to get our voices out there to the marketing departments of all your companies, that I'm making decisions about what we put on the phone and buy in the house based on safety and responsibility and responsiveness. Because I do think as we head into AI, one thing that is sort of terrifying is, who do you talk to? What's out there? Are you talking to a computer? Are you talking to a real person? Like, how do you get someone to listen to you if you have a problem? And I just want to thank you all today for coming, because this is a demonstration that at the companies there are people very smart, really forward-thinking, thinking about the problems that we're having using technology and also the opportunities. So there are real people behind the screen. Reach out to them. I want to thank you guys all for coming. I want to thank you for an excellent question. I have many thoughts on that question, so thank you for that question. And thank you so much, Marissa, for putting this together. Thank you. Yay. Try to get you guys some more marketing money.
Wrap just a couple minutes early, so feel free to